Good Monday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the Monday Market Monitor. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth and the country, on the I Love CVille Network. Today's program is a doozy. Commercial real estate is on the brain. Sit back, relax, and enjoy about an hour of education on the commercial real estate scene in the city, in the county, and in Central Virginia with Robin Amato. And if you know commercial real estate in this area, you know Robin Amato is as good as it gets when it comes to commercial real estate, guys. We're presented by Closure Title. We're powered by Ally Property Management here on the Monday Market Monitor. Judah Wickhauer is our director. If you could, go to the studio camera and let's welcome everyone to the set on a glorious day to be above the mud. Judah, thank you for doing that. Keith Smith, Nikki Chambless, and Robert Amato in the house. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks. I've been hounding Robin, please come on, we got to do commercial. So thank you, Robin, very much for doing this. So we'll just start off. Tell us a little bit about Robin Amato, who you are, and all the fun stuff about Robin Amato.
All right. Well, born and raised in the area. My mother's family was born and raised here, so I've got lots of roots. I got into real estate, 42 years ago. I graduated from high school and needed to do something. So I kind of, at that time, K-Tech had built its first home, and they were looking for a representative from each high school to be at an open house. So they asked me, and I went there on a Sunday, and I thought, I could do this. I kind of liked it. So went into real estate within 6 months to a year after that, and here I am today. I tell you, it's 6 months after I got into real estate, the rates were at 18%.
I was just going to say
Yep.
that.
All my friends were in college. I had, didn't have any roots to clients, so I had to get out there and just keep on working it, and it's kind of how I get up every morning.
Well, I can tell you, we did a fair number of commercial deals recently together, and Jerry has experienced this, and you have experienced this. Anytime I text you, I get a response right away. Sometimes it's at an ungodly hour, so I apologize.
If he texts me before 8 a.m., I ignore the text.
Okay.
At 8 a.m., then I respond.
Okay. Well,
he was texting me at 5:30. I'm like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work.
Yeah. But Robin responds because we're doing a deal.
Exactly. Yeah.
But and the intro that Jerry said is true. I mean, you've been in this industry for a while. We're looking for somebody to help us explain the commercial market a little bit. We'll take a dive a little bit in the show, what's happening over the last week as far as the real estate stuff. But it's just an open-ended question. So,
Okay.
We had the conversation via text pre-COVID, and now what's the commercial real estate market looking like?
Well, I did bring my crystal ball. I always have the crystal ball with me. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the market, I have found, and I think it depends on who you ask. The market can be great or the market can be slow, and a little bit in between there. I've got clients who certainly will say the market is slow, and I've got clients who will say it is fast. I cannot get things done, get things done quick enough to be able to stay up with the market. So overall, I have found that it's busy. I mean, it's the retail market is really slowed down a lot. I mean, but it is coming back. And it's slowly but surely it's coming back. And the office market, depending upon what part of the area you want to be in and what you're looking for. There's a good amount of inventory for office. If you want light industrial, it's almost impossible to find out there. So it's and people who were looking, before COVID, people were looking to expand and make their spaces larger. And then COVID hit, and during that time, they were still looking at real estate, but they decided to make their spaces smaller. They didn't need as much because they had lots of employees that were at home. Then, as we kind of got settled into seeing how things were working, then all of a sudden the square footage went back up because now people need to space out. Their employers, even though you may have your employees are still working from home, they're coming back to the office. And I found a lot of that's because people don't want to always work from home. It's a great thing to work from home, but
we want human connection.
We want to be with people. So
So, Nikki, thank you, Robin, so much for outlining this, because a lot of folks, when we get phone calls as real estate agents about commercial, most people diverge to retail, right? So let's talk about that a little bit, guys, that commercial is much more than just retail. What do you think about that?
No, I think that was
Nikki?
great, because I loved that you made that distinction, because it really does matter what part of commercial you're looking at as to whether or not it's hot or it's not. And I love that difference in commercial. We're the exact opposite in residential, whereas when your clients started looking for smaller spaces, ours were looking for larger ones, and it just kind of yo-yos opposite of each other. No, but I think a lot of times people do imagine just that retail side, and there's so much more.
So on the commercial side, we've been talking about this for seems like decades now on the show about drive till you qualify, right? So as we go out from the center of the city out, do we find there's more available? Is there better opportunities? What does that make any sense to you? So for instance, Zion's Crossroads, a dear friend, a client of mine, of ours, Johnny with Guadalajara and with El Mariachi out in Zion's Crossroads, we helped them set up out there because there was a great opportunity out there. Are you seeing that happen, getting pushed outside the center?
What I find is a lot of people are going to the Zion Crossroads area because they see the opportunity of the growth. There's so much growth going on there. And, it's kind of like how you see communities connect. I don't know how many years it'll be, but at some point in time,
Richmond and Charlottesville?
Exactly, and Zion Crossroad is going to be like, oh my gosh, I remember when it used to be so far out, just like the airport from Charlottesville. You felt like, oh my gosh, there's nothing. When Hollymead was first started, people thought, who is ever going to drive out here to live in Hollymead? But I find that, like Zion Crossroad, a lot of people will have their businesses there again because they are trying to fill that void. They see what's there. The other is that you've got, like let's say light industrial. There's a lot of light industrial land out there. So people are finding that for various reasons, they're moving their companies to Zion Crossroad. They're moving them over to Waynesboro, maybe in Louisa, Fluvanna, Greene County, just because there's more opportunity. The drawback to that is a lot of my clients will say, I can't be that far. I need to be able to be closer into Charlottesville because I serve the working person. And I need them to be able to come to my place, pick up what they need, or I need to be able to deliver it within a certain time frame. So, there's a constant battle of finding the right property for somebody.
How has COVID impacted the commercial game?
That's a hard question. Because as soon as I say as soon as I say one side of it, then the other side will argue it, and it's there. So let's say one thing I found that in Charlottesville that's happening. When I say Charlottesville, I really mean the whole surrounding area. So I'm not just saying the city. I mean Albemarle and all the outlying counties there. That what I have found is that the mentality of a buyer and a tenant they've thought people are going out of business and I can make great bargains. I'm going to be able to pick up properties at a discount, whether it be for lease or whether it be for sale.
And that hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened here in Charlottesville. Now, there are some. Without a doubt, unfortunately, there are some businesses that they didn't survive COVID. Sure. Their business model they needed public being able to walk in the door, and they weren't able to survive. And unfortunately, they didn't. But there are many other people who have found the way of how to work around COVID. There's so many other things that we have found, like, for instance, curbside service. If we had wanted curbside service prior to COVID, we would be paying a nice service fee for that. And now it's part of survival for people.
So, Nikki, I'm curious what you're seeing because you're out and about quite often and visiting different parts of the county. There's a question for both of you all. Are you starting to see the retail type changing a little bit? Right? Is because of COVID is restaurants less and let's say clothing stores more? I don't know. To me, it seems like there's a pivot on the type of retail product that's going out there. Any thoughts on that, guys?
I'm not sure what the actual data is, but just driving around and looking, I don't feel like there's a drastic change.
Really?
I'm surprised every time a new restaurant opens because I feel like that's a really tough game to be in right now, but they still are. And maybe it's a little less than what is normal.
I'm seeing more of a prioritization on experiential
Yep.
in commercial, where it's not just come in, buy a SKU, check out, and leave. It's about going to a place, experiencing something, and then maybe enjoying food or a piece of retail and then leaving. A good example is what Stonefield is doing. So the shops at Stonefield is adding music and a farmer's market
see
and
what
stuff
you're
for
saying.
kids and family. So you can go to Stonefield, you don't have to buy anything, and you can still improve your quality of life and then leave. One of our top clients at our firm, VMP Brands, is Animal Connection, and she has made at X Park shopping an experience where people come in for knowledge, they come in for a product, they leave with a value proposition, that it makes them smarter, something tangible. What are you seeing in regards to experiential retail or how it's impacting commercial?
Well, let me start off by saying that retail is not necessarily my forte. I work it, I know it, but it's, you know, so it might not be my strong point in answering this question, but I'll just say from Ally, what I see, working with people as well as what I personally see out there, and that is, it's definitely, we all want to be out and about. We want to feel like that we're able to get some type of normalcy back to our lives. And however, you do notice that when you're out shopping, people keep that distance. You know that there's no more of getting in your personal space. Everybody keeps their little bit of distance from each other. But but as far as going to restaurants, they're not as crowded, but some aren't as crowded, some are, but they're steady. They're relatively steady. But being able, like you're saying, at Stonefield, and as far as it like at Barracks Road and even downtown, people are still getting out where they can be out. I find a little bit of a slowdown, say, where you have lots of shops that are enclosed inside. But I don't know if that's really COVID related or not, because prior to COVID, the shopping center makeup was really being outside. It was more of an open type of shopping experience where people could park and walk.
So I'm going to ask a big question, because you just kind of made me think of something with the enclosed thing. From your personal and professional experience, what do you think is going to happen with Fashion Square Mall? What do you think is going to happen? Because we get asked that question all the time.
Yeah.
Just your opinion. Obviously you don't have a crystal ball on it, but do you think that's ever going to get rejuvenated back to what its old self?
No way, Jose.
No, yeah.
So then the question becomes, what's going to happen there?
Well, the big trend right now in shopping type of areas is to go in and for redevelopment. I think that you're gonna see again more of the open air type of markets. You're gonna have office, you're gonna see residential, gonna see
live, work, play.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Just like they've done over, as Jerry said, at Stonefield. I'm looking at, there's a listing I dug up for a coffee shop retail in the apartment building that they're building over there. Or we had Dairy Market on last Friday on the show. These guys are knocking it out of the ballpark with that. But I agree with you 100%. It's a little difficult because the parcels are carved up into multiple pieces, and how that process is ever going to move forward. But if there was anything ever to be done on that property, to me, in my opinion, it's this live, work, play setup. It's the perfect corridor for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great location. I mean, it's where it's sited. It's great. I just think that it's a matter of seeing who can go in there and purchase it, how long it will take to get the plans changed through the county, and
then what the market looks like 10 years or so down the line, because that's how long it's going to take between you get it untangled, go through rezoning and build. It's going to take maybe even more than that. And then that person or entity that does it has to have enough vision to see what the next 10 or some years down the line.
Who has the balance sheet or the cash position to be able to withstand that kind of time frame? I mean, is this an out-of-area PE firm that's going to do this?
I don't know. I mean, I think there are a couple of people in Charlottesville that have the ability to go in there and do it, and I think if those particular people can go in and do it, they've got their finger on the pulse of what Charlottesville needs, and whether it be the tech world, whether, say open air type of restaurants and it's just, there's a chance, there's always that chance that someone from out of Charlottesville will come in and do it because
Stonefield's owned by a New York PE
That's
firm.
exactly right.
Yeah. So it's very likely that something like that could happen also. It's all comes to money, typically.
Troy Robinson has this question for you. He's an entrepreneur. Because the pandemic has made everything so unsettling, Robin, should you lock in contracts short-term or long-term for commercial real estate?
Okay, so contract, is Troy asking for locking a contract as far as a lease?
He's
probably-
Taking
he's
a
speaking of
lease?
a lease, yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on what your business is, and it also depends on the rate and the location. If you can get a place right now that has a great rate, then I say lock it in for as long as you can. Because rates continuously go up. Typically in a lease, it's what's considered an industry average is 3% increase a year. If you can get a great rate now in terms, well then lock it in for as long as you can. Now landlords aren't going to like me when I say this, but you may want to have an escape clause in there after a certain time period that you have the ability that you can break your lease.
You won't tell anybody. Robin.
Well, but typically what happens in that escape clause is that there are items or clauses that cover a landlord. If a landlord has put out expenses to renovate or to give free rent, they typically somehow know that if they're able to work that in, that if you're going to break your lease, when I say break your lease, I'm not talking months, it's got to be years. But if you're going to be able to escape from it, then you give them so many months for being able to market the property, and you pay them back a certain percentage of what the build out was.
So let's before we get into it, I'd love to get into a little bit of details because most folks don't understand how this process works. So if Nikki and I are going to hire you to represent us to open up an awesome store someplace, there is a demo portion of it, there's an upfit portion of it, there's a whole different. Before we get into that question, Nikki and Robin, I know on my little real estate that I do, and I do a few transactions a year. Everybody wants to own. Nobody wants to lease anymore. Find me something to buy.
Purchasing in commercial, though, is
Oh, man.
the likelihood for most entrepreneurs out there is not great.
I understand that, and that's the the question I'm trying to ask is, that's the conversation you have to have with your client. And are you hearing that often, or folks that are buying are in a different position than leasing, or do you see that crossover?
I find a lot of times that it's a crossover. It's you've got people who they only want to buy.
Sure.
And you've got people who they only want to lease. And sometimes you've got the people who they have to lease for a while they're trying to get in, trying to buy what they're in. At some
Sure.
point in time, maybe the property will sell. But what was your question?
So the question I was trying to ask is you answered it to a certain degree. I am seeing the first question I get from a commercial person is, I'd like to own before I rent. Go find me something to buy. And Jerry's spot on. And the answer is,
You're not going to buy anything.
you're not going to buy anything because it's
Yeah,
hard. It's
yeah,
hard.
it's
Unless you
hard.
go and do the development component.
Which they're not gonna do that.
Which they're not going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times what happens in Charlottesville trying to buy something, it's pricey. Our prices, we're not inexpensive. The nice thing about us, though, is that in our area, when we have a tight market, like when you see those interest rates starting to climb on up and the rest of the United States is slowing down some, Charlottesville, it's going to slow a little bit, but the values continue to stay there. Your lease rates, they probably have the part of the component that are affected the most, because the leasing rates will have a tendency to drop when the market
So that's
gets tight.
interesting. I did an analogy on the residential over the last 20 years, and which included the time of great unpleasantness, as Neil Williamson explains on the show. But we went up a little about 3.5% on the residential side. Some years it was a little low, some years it was a little higher than that. But that's interesting to hear. So you're saying that if I want to buy a commercial property and lease it out, I can expect a year-over-year increase in rent. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Historically?
Yes.
Cool. Any thoughts,
That's
Robin?
awesome. No, to me, it sounds like our commercial side of things here in Charlottesville is really strong, just like our residential.
Thank you.
And to have that kind of stability in an area, I just feel is a really great thing to have.
Sorry, I called you Robin. I meant Nikki.
That's okay. That's what threw me. I was like, wait,
But I
who
was
am I today?
pointing.
I don't know. It's Monday. I got a different
Monday
name.
and only
I'm
one
Robin.
cup of coffee.
Ray Cadell says, Robin, how do you always manage to stay the same age and look absolutely fantastic
And
while
that's
all of us are getting older? That's from Ray Cadell right there.
Okay, hey Ray, Doris Day, I understand, had this little smoke screen that they put over on all of her films and pictures. So I got
We
some
have
kind
no
of spray.
filter on Robin. No filter.
I brought my own.
Mustache
Thank
Dan
you, Ray.
Pettit has a comment for you.
Okay.
Mustache Dan Pettit. He says, I miss Robin on the residential side of real estate.
Well, Dan's a great guy.
He is a great guy.
He is a great guy. So I always enjoyed working with Dan. So Dan, send me some commercial business, and we'll be able to keep on working together.
Jonathan Lancaster has this comment for you. Robin, can you give us some insight into some of the terms, the money down, and what you need to do to purchase a piece of real estate in the commercial sector?
Okay. So there are, again, a couple of different sides. Depends on if you're buying it as an investment or if you're buying it for your own use. And if you're buying it as, say, as an investment, well, some of it is hand in hand, but for the most part, an average is this, because everything always, it might be a little bit of tweaking, but the overall average is you typically are going to put down 25 to 30% down payment. Your rates, depending upon what you want as a rate, but it's not like the residential world where you have a fixed rate for 25, 30 years. There are some that you can get fixed for 25 years, but every 5 to 7 years, they have a review period where that rate can go up. And then the other is that depending upon if you want to use it, if you're buying it as an investment, then a mortgage company is going to be looking on the appraisal for what type of income is it going to generate. And then if you're going to use it for yourself, then the mortgage company is going to want to know what your business plan is. And sometimes, depending upon, there's some mortgage companies that are better to go to for one type of business use, and another, other mortgage companies for other uses.
So interesting to
snapshot.
follow up on that. I have had a client, we'll name it, remain nameless on this. They had a functioning business in the Charlottesville area, and they wanted to go to one of the outlying counties, pretty successful business on that end of it, and they had to start all over from a purchasing perspective because they were not allowing them to use their 2-year tax returns from the Charlottesville business because it was just far enough away that the lenders considered it a new entity, which was something I did not know, and I learned that in this particular transaction. It also could have been an SBA thing because that's what we were working with, a small business administration loan on that end of it. But that was something that, the commercial purchasing side of things is very specific to the deal, very specific to the parcel, very specific to what the buyer or the seller, the buyer is trying to accomplish. Has that been your experience?
Yes. So, and like say, for instance, I think maybe in your client's situation, another thing that a lender will look at are demographics. And that is when you move from, say, Charlottesville to another location of what you're doing, if your demographics will help support it, even though it may be further away, you still have that may help you. Sometimes I've worked with people who will call up and they've got a great idea for a great business and they want to go out, they start looking at property, and then all of a sudden they realize what it's really going to cost them. They have no business plan, so you're like, you really need to have an idea of what you're doing because you've got to go ask somebody for money.
Well, Nikki, that's the same thing in retail world, right? In lease in retail or lease, and I can speak to this from a little experience out at Lake Monticello. Some folks, they come from places that have funny accents like me that come down and they say, well, I see 14,000 people, yada, yada, yada. And they think they can open up a bagel store or something along those lines. And what we do as agents to help the client through this, sometimes we've got to tell them the unpleasant thing. You need a business plan, right? And you need the demographics because your landlord pretty much acts as a lender. They're going to want to make sure that your business plan works. Have you experienced any of that, guys?
I mean, I know
Yeah.
she
I
has.
definitely
So
have.
I run into that. So I don't dabble in commercial. When I was very early on in real estate, I thought I was going to do that. And then I learned that they were just two completely different games, and
Yeah.
I needed to pick one, right? So I picked the one that I was going to get really good at, and it did not end up being commercial. But that's not to say that I don't really love and have a high interest in it, because I love business, right?
Yeah.
So I end up with a lot of people who I know who are like, oh, I have this business idea. I have this much money in the bank. Do you think you could find me a place? And I'm like, well, do you know what a performer is? Do you have a business plan?
There you go.
What do you have? Because people think, oh, I have this amount of money in the bank. If I can cover, the next 3 to 6 months, which really is not that long, they think someone's just going to say, yes, here, sign the line. And that's not how it works.
That's my number one vetting threshold is the business plan. Let me see the business plan. And if
Yeah.
the tenant does not have a business plan, they don't get a lease. My number two vetting threshold is security deposit, first month's rent, and last month's rent. And if they can't cover that, they don't get a lease.
Yeah.
But a lot of questions coming in. This one about business plans, and another one that's coming in about seller finance deals.
Okay.
Of how many of the deals that you do are seller finance versus finance through a bank. So maybe first the business plan, and then second the seller finance question.
Okay, so what was the question on the business plan?
So
I mean, your question, or,
That,
okay.
so this is a follow-up to a question. So as I was telling, the feed just blows up with questions. So how important is the business plan for a lease, right? So Jerry's leasing. I want to lease something from Jerry. You're representing Jerry. How important is the business plan for us to get even past first base?
It really depends on the user, but so let's say for the most part, in a lease situation, in my world, it's not that important.
Wow.
For a tenant to have a business plan in hand for the landlord to see.
Why is that?
Well, because what the landlord wants to know, they want to hear it from me. They want it, and I'm going to ask you, if you're if I'm representing the landlord and you're bringing the tenant, I need to know something about that person. I need
Sure.
to be able to tell the landlord so that the landlord feels good about renting their property or putting their money into fixing it up, or with the
Well, the
TI.
reason why this is important, we tapped into it a little bit earlier about the demo and the upfit charges, right? So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. So we just did a transaction, you and I, where it was a space, something else, and then our client wanted it to be something else, right? And so what we happened was, instead of having the landlord do it, part of our negotiation is our tenant did the demo and the upfit. But that's not normally the case. Sometimes the landlord has to do the demo, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't feel good about what I'm trying to do, A, you're not going to demo it, spend the money to demo it, and B, you're not going to lock up that thing for 12 or 24 months.
Right. Yep. So what happens in there is that with the demo part of it, and it's, as I say to tenants, and a lot of times, and that is that what the landlord is looking at is money in and money out. How much money am I going to get coming in on the lease, and how much money am I going to have to put out, and how long?
Or
does
how
it
long the
take me?
term is.
Yeah, and that's how long does it take to recover it? So you typically see, and in retail, a lot of times in retail, landlord really doesn't do anything. They might give you free rent. You might get some free rent up front so that you will go in and you have the time to go in and do the upfit. And upfit is, for those listening, upfit is when you go in and you remodel and modify the space so it works for you. In the office world and leasing world, then the landlord a lot of times will put in some money. And it depends on what generation. First generation is considered new construction. Then your landlord typically is giving you $1 per square foot. And that kind of will range on an average of $30, $40 a square foot, because you're getting nothing but a shell and shell beam, concrete floor.
White box.
Yeah, and not even drywall on
No.
it, not there. So again, it just depends on terms. I mean,
So these numbers could be substantial. One of my clients that did a project was, we got it's a restaurant, had a substantial demo fee. The landlord did all the demo work, but it was $500,000 in the upfit to turn this space into a restaurant, and that is the capital investment from the tenant side. And this particular case, Robin, we didn't work this deal together, but it was somebody else. That was the real thing that the landlord wanted to know is, do you have the capital to do this?
Yeah.
And we had to demonstrate that we had the capital. I use the word we, the
client.
The client had the capital to do this. So these are, big picture things that you're going to have to bring to the table if you want to do this. But somebody like Robin or any other commercial real estate, or I dabble a little bit in it, we can help you navigate through this process. But 9 times out of 10, it's like a mom and pop, I want to do something like this, and you have to sit down and educate them through that. That's our responsibility as agents, to educate them through the process.
Yeah, and you don't want to see somebody who has got has a dream that they want to do. They take their savings, they borrow
Against their house.
Yeah, or they really leverage themselves to a point to get in there, and it's great, but they didn't have the money to keep it going. I mean, because you've got to have some type of a buffer in there between, because you're going to have downtimes and you're going to have uptimes. So, and nobody ever saw COVID coming.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't in anybody's plans ever. So, and landlords, a lot of landlords worked with tenants who were having difficulties. So it's so that and it's in a landlord's best interest if they can work with the tenant, because if a tenant moves out, then the landlord has to start over again. They've got downtime, they've got money they've got to put out. So if you've got a tenant that really wants to make a go of it and stick in there, and a landlord to work with them, then you ride through the storm.
So you mentioned you don't do too much retail. What is most of the work that you do?
A lot of what I do is between office and light industrial. So that's primarily what I do.
So
Leasing and selling.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Grayson says, and we got to get to the feed here. Grayson says, please bring up the seller finance topic with the guest, Jerry. You talk about seller finance deals and how you built your real estate empire through seller finance deals. Please ask Robin about this. That's from Grayson, who watches our show all the time.
Okay, so wanting to know, is it common? Available? Is it common?
The mechanics of it?
So no, it's not that common. It's I would say, gosh, I think over the last 14 years, I think maybe 3 contracts have been owner financing.
Wow.
And it really kind of comes down to say the owner of the property, what they want to do with their money, and how, so it even goes further, like capital gains comes into play.
Sure.
Like, do they have to pay capital gains? Owner doesn't necessarily want to come out of pocket on that. And it also depends on if in some cases you typically find that when there's owner financing, it's because the owner doesn't need that cash right away.
That's exactly right.
But they don't want to own the property any longer. So the question is take your cash. What can you do with that cash? Can you buy something else with it and make more of a return, or can you make more of a return owner financing it?
Yeah, in commercial space, owner financing is a little difficult because of this 1031 exchange, and you're going to have to find something else. It's different if you're doing a rental property like Nikki has, and if you want to sell something like that, you can find another house pretty easily. I have commercial property clients that are selling, and we're closing on some projects at the end of this year, and they're panicking because there's nothing to buy.
Yeah.
Right. So they need to put their money someplace, and these are big dollars, right? And this tax implications are huge, and they're trying to. We're looking everywhere from Virginia Beach down to South Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Trying to find them something to buy within that. But
let me say on the owner financing, and that is that if an owner wants to finance it, it's great. Utilize it, because you're probably going to save money.
So much on closing costs.
Yeah, you're going to save on closing costs. But the flip side of it is you're only going to get that financing for a certain amount of time.
Sure.
Where the rates right now are so daggone low that it's, if you can lock into a rate, and there's some rates out there that you can lock in, you're better off to do that.
The rates may be great, but are lenders willing to lend on commercial property?
Yes.
That's a big
Yes.
change.
Depends on the bank.
That's a big change.
Well, they all want to lend. It just depends on what type of I say deal, what type of deal you're taking. Some banks love doctors, love medical. Other banks don't like them. So, go this way. Some, to this particular. Some.
Or how much money you're putting down, right? Then
Yeah.
it becomes a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Right, if you're putting 50%
it really all kind of
down.
comes down to risk. And as many times as we've seen over the years that when the market gets really tight and people start to lose properties, banks become we are finally getting to a point that I feel good that banks are lending money. I mean, there was a point there where you could not get a bank to lend money.
Well, Nikki,
it was hard.
Just a construction perm from the real estate, residential real estate side, construction perms are starting to make a comeback. A couple of years ago, that I don't think I would be able to say that. And Yon and I are working a couple of new builds that they're doing construction perms, which was unheard of years ago.
Well, the best thing from my experience with the seller finance deal is I had no closing costs on the deals that I did, and they were all 5-year terms because they wanted their money. So it put a hell of a lot of pressure on me to pay off all the debt in 5 years.
Right.
So when 5 years was over, you have no mortgage debt.
Yeah. Or get it low enough that it's
That you can go
easy.
refi somewhere.
Yeah, very easy.
Yeah, so I just paid them off. So
We're closing on ours today.
It's amazing.
Oh, congratulations. That's
Nice.
fantastic. Very nice. More comments coming in for Robin. So this question has come in. What counties do you cover in Virginia to lease, and what counties are easiest to deal with?
Well, I pretty much stay within, I stay Charlottesville, Albemarle, Greene, Louisa, Fluvanna, Orange, Nelson, and the Waynesboro over, the valley, as I call it. It's funny, residential and in commercial. That mountain kind of draws a line, and it's so different. It's just such a different, so that's the area. I really don't like to go outside of an area that I don't know. I don't feel like that if I go into an area, like someone said, hey, I want to go to Fredericksburg. I don't know Fredericksburg's market, and I do a disservice to my client. I'm better to refer it to somebody who knows that
And that's
area.
amazing. That's a really important thing.
Yeah.
So another question coming in for you. Robin, what would you say to someone that is new to the game that wants to get into commercial real estate ownership? What are the criteria they should have in order to get it?
Well, first call me.
That's
Let's get
why you've been doing it.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way.
All right.
Or email me, text me, whichever.
I was waiting for that to come out. It only took us 45 minutes.
Yeah. But you need to decide what you're looking for. How long you want to own something, what type of property are you going to manage it. And this was somebody who wanted to get into it, I guess it depends on if you wanted to own it for an investment or if you want to own it for yourself. But it kind of all goes along the same line, and that is what you feel comfortable being able to manage.
Nakahili, says Nikki. And she
Hello.
loves you. Maggie Gunnels, Lake
Maggie.
Monticello.
Thank you, Maggie. I have my box right here. I'm bringing it home.
He's taking it home after this show.
After the
show. He says, hi, Nikki. Maggie says, hi, Nikki.
Hi.
Love doing deals with you.
I love working
That's
with
from
you too.
Maggie
You're
Gunnels.
amazing.
She's fantastic. It was great on the show. So here's a really intriguing question. Robin, it seems like the downtown mall is owned by a handful of people. When do you predict the downtown mall will be open to more robust group of buyers? So what do you got? You got
When they want to get rid of it.
you got Joe Geek. You got some Bill Nichman in there. You got Ludwig Kutner. You got Alan Kajit in there. You got
Yeah.
Mr. Lewis in there.
Yes.
It really kind of is owned by a handful of people. The
It
downtown
is.
mall.
It is, and this goes back a long time ago that they started. Charlie Lewis's father started buying real estate a long
York
time ago.
Place.
Yeah, and it really, I guess it I don't know. It's kind of almost one of those things where you got to be at the right place at the right time and have the right amount of money. So, and sometimes you just happen to hearing about it. And it goes back to what you want to invest in. Downtown is not cheap.
Not cheap.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
I mean, because in Charlottesville, literally the city of Charlottesville, there's only a limited amount of land that's left, and when I say left, I mean
10.2 square miles. We're landlocked.
yeah, I mean but it's just it's a tough market. I mean, it really is a tough market to break into. But little by little, depends on some of them will maybe sell eventually, but I think they're all.
That's the
all
reason
of the
I was
A's are gonna
asking the
stay for a
question
while.
about moving out from the center, Robin, that if there's opportunities, say in Greene or Nelson
Okay.
or Louisa or something like that, that maybe if this person is looking for to begin their investment, and that may be a good spot to start. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that like I'll say like Crozet. Crozet's always been busy, and it's
But that's
continues
kind
to
of like
grow.
Charlottesville. I was there
It's
this
a hard-
weekend.
it's a hard place.
There's nothing. I was just preparing for the show. I was wandering around downtown Crozet. I was at Mud House for a cup of coffee. I couldn't find anything available down there.
You need to look at the comprehensive plan for Albemarle County
Sure.
because that's really you got to look and see where the county is looking for growth and what they're looking for change. You can have somebody's resident sitting like in Crozet, sitting in a single family residence sitting right in the midst
Growth
of
area.
where their growth area.
So there's one component of what we haven't spoken about with commercial, which most folks don't know, because I know you do a fair amount of it because we've worked a couple of deals together. Development land, right? Right? So you do quite a bit of that, don't you?
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So it's basically, you've just kind of outlined it, that if somebody wants to do that, maybe you might want to go through the process. I mean, you've got to have some deep pockets to acquire, go through the rezoning. But you do a little bit of that, don't you?
Yeah, I work with people who are looking for properties to be able to develop. And I'd say the first thing you got to have is patience. So that's first things, because whether it be, and primarily, I'll say that Albemarle County and City of Charlottesville are a little bit harder to work with to get your plans through. But you got to think about it when you drive around and you see what's around and how it's been developed. It pays off at the end. But I find that Greene County and Orange, Fluvanna, Louisa seem to be very open arms.
Welcoming.
Like, they're like, come on, we'll work with you in any way and fast track. So that's been my experience as far as with when people are looking to develop something. But it also depends on the person who's buying it and what they're going to develop.
Sure.
Again, are they doing retail? Are they doing office, industrial, multifamily? What are they looking to do?
So I drove around Lake Monticello, Zions Crossroads, Crozet over the weekend to kind of
You
get
were
ready
busy.
for today.
Okay.
And I couldn't, just from a vacancy perspective, I couldn't find anything vacant.
Yeah,
Are you seeing that?
and you gotta, and that's I refer to it as you gotta be a hound dog. You gotta get out there and just keep up with what's out there. Make phone calls. It's just like in the residential world.
I was about to say, Nikki, that's
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
it.
It's the same exact thing.
Yeah,
And it depends on what you're looking for too, right? Because I know right across from our Greenbrier office space, there's a building that has, from my understanding, 2 floors available. But it's office space and it's probably for lease, not for sale.
You got 6 real estate firms in Central Virginia watching you
Oh,
on this show right now here.
Not
Hey,
us.
Dan has
not
got a
you.
good question here. What percentage of commercial properties are sold word of mouth before they actually come on the market up for sale for everybody else? I bet quite a few, right?
yeah. So I don't know percentage. That one I don't know. But I will say that there are lots of properties that sell and lease that are literally word of mouth. And because, when you say you drive around, you don't see much available. If I hear of something that's happening, I'm calling my clients and people. And when I say clients, it's people who are loyal to me. So, it's, and then the commercial world is a little bit different than the residential, because in the residential world, you typically have a buyer or say a buyer. It's going to work with you and call you always. Where in the commercial world, initially people are calling all around, and you hope at some point in time that they feel comfortable enough that they're going to stick with you to work with.
So you charge,
So-
go ahead, Nikki.
I was going to say, well, in the residential side of things, we have quite a listing service that is very reliable and is where most of our listings are. But it's very different in the commercial world, right?
You guys got LoopNet.
Yeah, it is. Well, we've got LoopNet, and then we have Catalyst, which is through the car website, and then you've got Craigslist. And then you also have to know the other companies, other real estate companies go to their website, because literally they're the 4 things I have to check. That if I've got somebody looking for something, I go to all of those to check, because there's no one central place.
Well, that 4th one's important. It's your relationship with the other commercial brokers, because unlike residential, I mean, we're looking at data over here for the last 7 days. As Nikki noted, I can pull into Paragon and I can pretty much tell exactly what's selling and not selling. Not so in the commercial world. Sometimes a commercial broker may have their own, I don't want to use the word pocket listings, but they have their own little properties that they're trying to promote one way or the other, and you need to pick up the phone and establish these relationships. So it's a very different format on how to get even data, right? This whole interview started from a conversation I had with a reporter from Channel 29. What's the price per square foot change? And there's no way to pull it.
No.
It's impossible to pull it.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of get an idea. You take a snapshot, but it also you need to know the market, because by knowing the market, you know what's missing. But there's some properties that you'll never, that you don't pick up on. If you have a property yourself that you're leasing, and you have a tenant or someone come to you, it may never hit the market, may never know it. So they're
And there's no way to track the square footage. What was it? 2 years versus this year, and that was the frustration, right, from folks that are trying to gauge where the commercial market is going, and there is no uniformed database that by you can search that.
Yeah.
I'm Facebook chatting with Stu Rifkin, literally, as we're doing this interview right now. Love you, Stu. He's in Maine. Questions about cap rate coming on the feed. Questions about the entry point on the downtown mall currently coming on the feed. Why don't we start there? Can we do a broad stroke entry point for ownership commercial on the downtown mall? Is it Lee Hughes' current listing? The ATM Bank of America right now that I believe is 1.3. In fact, I'm looking at it now, 1.375. Is that the entry point on the mall?
Okay, so when you're asking entry point as far as the price to purchase?
To purchase. To purchase.
Gosh. Okay, so now you're getting into statistics that I only pull when I need to.
Sure.
Some things I can't keep in my brain.
Rough estimate.
So, oh gosh, let's see. It can run, I will say it'll go anywhere from probably $300 to $600 a square foot. Okay. I sold one property that was crazy. It was a small little property, and it was a crazy price on it. However, the buyer needed it and wanted it because of where its location. But it's the
crazy small on the downtown mall.
Crazy small.
Can I guess?
Only a couple of them. You'll find out.
I know which one it is.
But then you've got the new buildings, that are coming up out of the ground, that they're for, being for lease, and to build them. My gosh, Charlottesville.
You're talking Oliver's project?
Yeah. You've got several. You've got the 323 building, you've got the Apex building, the Code building. They're the 3 that are right up out of the ground. And if there's a 4th and I've missed you, I'm sorry. I mean,
you nailed them.
But then you've got Tarleton will be coming up out of the ground also, but Tarleton's not out of the ground yet. And I mean, a couple of years ago, prior to COVID, we sat there and in the real estate world, I sat there and it's like 400,000 to 500,000 square feet coming available downtown. And it's like, what in the world?
Right.
And
we were freaking out about parking then.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so parking's not as hard.
It's not as important, yeah.
But then Willow-Tree moved down to,
Albemarle County.
Yeah, moved down the street and then, and opened up some parking there. So, but it's, but that's a whole different kind of construction, because that's a lot of steel, a lot of timber, the timber, in the Apex building. Building. So, you're looking at, I don't know, it depends on whether it's, because a lot of that type of square footage is, well, one, it's not for sale. Most of it's not for sale, it's just for lease. But a lot of that is costing around $500 or so a square foot. And that's when you take the land and you take the construction.
I happen to think it's a little light at $500 a square foot.
I think so too.
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
But do you have a sense for their occupancy? Is the Code building filling?
Code building is fully occupied.
Is it fully occupied?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Out?
Well, then that's news for me, because I hear that there's some
I
space.
heard
but
on Thursday
Okay.
from one of the individuals.
Yours is better than mine. Yours is more reliable.
They're good. But there is some vacancy in the buildings right off of Water Street. Is that Garrett Street?
Yes,
Where
uh-huh.
Oliver's project
Yes.
is going? There's
Yeah.
vacancies there.
Yeah, they've got some vacancy there.
There's
and
also
then
right
there's-
next to South Street some vacancy I saw this morning. There's the pink building, the
Pink warehouse.
the pink warehouse, and then to the right of South Street, there's another building they renovated, which is
The
some-
Wells Fargo building.
Thank you, which is available.
Yeah, so there's lots of space down there. So it's it's just it's little by little. Yeah, little by little. I'd say that the office market itself has slowed up a bit. It was really hopping there in the spring, and it slowed up a bit. But I still, if somebody asks me how's business, and I can tell you it's busy. It's crazy busy. So it just depends on what you're working on at the time.
But we just articulated or just showed the struggle of trying to find information, what's available in the
yeah.
code building, because there's no unified database. And I know I sit on your committee as
That's great
a
for
board
them.
member.
That's
Yeah.
not great for the marketplace. It
That's
reminds me
exactly-
of when you agents had the MLS as a book. And then you guys
yeah.
guarded that with your life.
No,
Once
no.
you started giving away the information for free online, you started losing some control there.
Yeah.
as
No, when we gave it to Zillow.
Yeah, then you lost all your control.
I'm
But
just
they
saying.
still have their control.
They have
Because
their-
there's no centralized spot. I probably spend 15 to 20 hours a week doing this, and I have to cherry pick, like you said,
Yeah.
like 6 different websites, or pick up the phone or text the guys and say, what the hell's going on here? What's available?
Yeah. So you got to jot it down, remember how much something is, because prices aren't always posted. You got to remember what's out there. Sometimes something will be leased, but it's still out on a website or out on LoopNet for a while. And, it's just,
So you think it's always going to be like that? Do you think it's ever going to change?
well, from what I understand, it's gotten a lot better. Like prior to 14 years ago, it wasn't as good. I mean, people kept their information and literally
Close to the vest.
almost, close to the vest. It's gotten better, but I don't know. There's I think that what makes it a little bit harder is you have realtors and you have real estate agents.
There you go.
And I would say,
A lot of people don't know what she's about to say here. This is a
Okay.
big distinction here.
well, okay. So, all right. So a realtor is going to be someone who's a real estate agent that is a member of your National Association of Realtors and your local Association of Realtors. Real estate agents have a real estate license, and they aren't a member. And if you're not a realtor, you can't be a member of your local association. Therefore, you can't get your information into that system. So it's just a matter of trying to.
There's
trying to keep it.
there's also different rules too, right?
Yeah.
If
you
you're
know.
a realtor, you have
Yeah.
to apply by certain ethics and
Yes.
codes
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the guy that says that.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to say
If
that
you're
the
not
people
if you're
aren't.
not a member, you're not
Yeah.
a member. You're not so much.
Yeah, but I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, you're not knocking
We're
it.
I'm not going to say
saying
that they're not
publicly,
ethical
I'm just-
by any means.
But there's,
Because you do deals with those
That's
people.
right. And they're good people. I like them.
They're all lovely people.
Yes.
We do deals and all that stuff. But there's a difference that we pointed out between being a realtor and being a real estate agent. And hopefully Donna will not correct me on the way I say it. But
Donna Patton
and I
gives him a
wouldn't
hard
get-
time with
what-
his New York
yeah.
accent.
Oh, I know she was cringing just now when you said that. It's okay.
You got to get rid
I
of
think
one
a lot of
those
people
A's.
just cringed when I said that.
You can't do it.
Neil Williamson says, guys, the Crozet Comprehensive Plan is currently under review. To add to the discussion here, that's the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, Neil Williamson. You got NBC 29, The Daily Progress, and CBS 19 currently on the feed watching the show. How about the question on cap rate? How important is cap rate to doing these deals?
To an investor, it means everything. And, there's a lot involved in trying to sort out what a cap rate is because, and I wouldn't even venture to get to the true cap rate because you got to take someone's taxes and their incomes and
Yep.
other investments. But in general, what we'll do here is we use a snapshot, and that's where you're basically going to take a net operating income that a property generates, and then what kind of return somebody wants on their money.
So let's
Here-
define cap rate. So
Okay.
those who don't know what a cap rate is, somebody take a stab at defining that.
To me, well,
How you
to
value
me-
property.
Excuse me?
How you value it.
Yeah. It's what kind of return you're going to
So
get.
it's a capitalization rate. It's
Yeah.
how much capital you have in it and over a course of time. It used to be, and I don't know if it's still the case, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Robin, you usually want to try to hit about 7%. Is that the sweet spot, or is that changing here lately?
It changes. I mean,
Yeah.
7 seems to be a goal right now, but I've seen them go from 5 to 8. And if you get below 5%, then
Yeah.
that's hard. It's hard to buy properties at that. And if you get, and sellers don't want to sell when you're starting to get above 8%. So it's. And then you look at dollar per square foot. You also take that into account. So, but to an investor, a cap rate means everything.
Of the whole world. I've done a couple below 5, but that's only because it was an exchange and they needed
A Starker exchange?
That's exactly right. They needed to park their money
Yeah.
somewhere because they did the math and it worked okay.
And sometimes you've got a user, someone who's going to buy a property and they're going to use it for their own. It's not an investment.
Sure.
And that cap rate can be low because they need it. And some people will buy a property that has a low cap rate because they see what's going to happen around it. And they know that if they own that property then, in a couple of years or so, it's got a whole different value. And up is typically what it is.
Yes.
Johnny Ornalis has a comment. Fashion Scare Mall should gut the center of the mall and make it into an open-air walkway like Short Pump, and then add another story on top for office space or living. Johnny, I totally agree. A live, work, play concept would crush it at that center, at that spot. More comments coming in. This one is a follow-up on cap rate. Is cap rate the most important metric with the clients that you're dealing with?
No. I mean, it really comes down to the property itself. Most of my clients that I deal with, they don't have a set rate that they absolutely have to, but it's definitely something some people take into account. When I'm pricing properties and an owner wants to sell a property, I look at it from an investor standpoint. So I look at it from a user and also an investor. An investor is going to look to buy a property within a certain cap rate. So you got to be prepared. This is one segment of the market. A user is going to look at it from a whole different perspective because they want the property to use. You bring a light industrial property on the market, and that cap rate may not work, but boy, that use sure can.
Location, price,
Location, yeah.
features, condition, and timing. That's what we talk about all the time in the real estate world, and it's really not any different from the retail or the residential or the commercial, right? It's
Right.
the location, how much am I paying for it, what's my lease, what's the features in it, does it do what I need it to do, what's the condition, do I have to upfit it or downfit it, and is the timing right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what we all, 4 of us, do here in this real estate market, is start playing with those 4 or 5 different factors to meet our clients' needs. I'm going to pivot a little bit from commercial, unless you got some great questions.
Oh, we got more coming in.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
This is from Jackson Sherling. Jerry and I did a deal a couple years ago, and to get back on your conversation point about having an online or centralized location for transactions and to seeing what's on the market, I think as more buyers enter the market that are younger and internet and sophisticated, that they're going to demand one place to get all commercial listings, and that's when we'll have a commercial MLS, which we desperately need. What do you make of that comment?
Sounds like a great plan.
Who's gonna
Someone's
lead
got
the
to put
charge?
it in.
Right, who's going to lead the
Yeah,
charge?
because
Well-
it really kind of comes down to money. I mean, I love LoopNet and I use CoStar a lot, but it's pricey. I mean, it really is pricey.
How much
if
you
go
pay
to-
for LoopNet and CoStar?
Oh, together a month, and we pay about $1,600 a month.
Yeah.
And that's not being able to get all of our properties out there, but it's and I pay about $40 a month for my for Catalyst at the car.
So you're too fine of a person to say that, but you are chairing the commercial council at CAR, and we're trying to tackle that very question.
Yes. Yes.
As a team, I'm on your team, and we're trying to tackle that very question on how we can get a centralized.
Because if you don't do it, it's just going to happen with like a Craigslist. I would bet more potential buyers, especially my age and younger, are finding potential properties to buy in commercial on Craigslist than LoopNet or any of the other platforms.
And Crexy also is something that's starting to come up that that's another place. So there are lots of others that that places uses are coming in. So I think what ends up happening, people will Google commercial real estate, and then things just start to pop, and you just keep on clicking.
So who's the 20-ton elephant in our retail space that's now getting into commercial? Zillow.
Oh,
Google it.
yeah.
Zillow is starting its commercial platform, and it's starting it out, as these things usually start, out west in the Seattle, Portland, California kind of thing. But go ahead and Google it. Zillow has recognized, based on articles I've read this weekend, that there is no centralized thing, and I think they might fill that void.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Look, from
It should scare the hell out of you.
It doesn't. I think we as an association, NAR, and all that stuff, need to take a better step forward to making this happen. That's just my personal opinion. If not, the market's going to do it.
Yeah.
The market's just going to do it. And, if Zillow ends up becoming the source for this stuff.
Zillow will then have cornered residential and commercial.
But there are other parts of it that, besides just finding the information, that's what's available. Because I need comps all the time. I need to know what's sold, what's leased, and that also is that. Again, if you're trying to lease something or buy something, or you want to sell something, and you're looking for what's my competition done? What's the other property?
Well, that's what we can do in Paragon for residential. You can't do that and that was questions I was asked. That's the whole genesis of this meeting, because I was asked from the media, what's the comps? And there's no place to dig into that. Where I can tell you right now what's sold in Albemarle County in the last 7 days. The median sales price was, that's Nelson County, I apologize, was $370,000. It was on the market for 6 days, 2,100 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 3 baths. I can do this all day long with any jurisdiction. I can't do it for commercial.
And that's good for you guys. That makes your value proposition so strong.
Well, again, you really need to know the market and keep up with the market. So because again, I've always kind of felt like you can't sell what you don't know. So you got to keep up what's there. But Keith, your number probably does Paragon track the for sale by owner?
It does not.
Yeah. So see, that's another, but that's not that much.
In
the
much. Retail side or the residential side, it's minuscule.
Yeah, it's not much.
It's minuscule.
Where in my world, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's the numbers. I would imagine it's flipped.
Yeah.
The percentages would be flipped.
What's FSBO for commercial, for sale by owner?
The same thing.
No. I mean, what percentage?
What's the percent? I thought you meant like what's the wording. I have no idea.
50% plus?
No, I don't think it's quite that.
No.
But what you will have, though, is that you will have, like you were saying with a property, you've got a waiting list. You get a vacancy, you call that on that list, you lease it up, never hits the market, but it's a number, it's a statistic.
But that's not any different, Nikki, in the residential world, right? Because you own some residential lease properties, right? That's no different.
It isn't, but are you talking about the rental aspect?
No, the list.
Or the actual...
The need.
I just feel like for us, there's so few of that FSBO that it doesn't impact us the way it does
No, I think the question I'm trying to ask is...
Do you have a waiting list?
Do you have a waiting list? Thank you, Jerry.
Oh, not at the moment, but could I? Yeah, if I put out hints of something, my tenant came to me and was like, hey, we may find a house we want to put an offer on. How do you feel about us ending our lease early? And I was like, you know what? I feel great about it. Let's have a short little conversation where we lay out some parameters in more specific terms than the lease does that we would put in writing. But, I don't think she got her offer in. But if she did, go for it, because I could easily have a waiting list.
Well, one of the things that I do is I make sure, even when I'm 100% occupied like I am now, I still market the properties as if they're vacant.
There you go.
And because I market the properties like they're vacant, people are constantly, pinging me, can I see this property? I'm like, oh, you just missed it. It just got full. But I'll hold your name on the waiting list.
We'll get on the list.
We'll get your name on the list, and then we'll get back to you if it gets
Because you never know.
You never know.
No.
You never know. So then your waiting list is 8-10 people deep. So it never has to stay vacant for long.
Oh, see, with the rental, I would get 20 plus inquiries a day probably, and I don't have time to manage all that when it's not really available. You know what I mean?
Well, we have the perfect person and company to manage that. It's
So not
Ally
only do
Property
we, but I
Management.
have started talking to her.
There
You'll
you
be
go.
so happy to know.
I will give a shout out to Suzanne and Ally Property. I know she doesn't do any commercial, but we're closing our first investment property since the great unpleasantness of the 2008 to 2010 on that end of it. The fact that I don't have to do anything makes me super uncomfortable because she's doing everything, right? That everything's taken care of, tenant is paid. It's just freaking awesome.
And doing some of the things that I know other property management companies don't do. Because I was like, wait, you'll do this too? You'll handle finding the contractor to tear out the carpet in the master bedroom and do it, and I just stand back and approve? She was like, absolutely. I said, oh, you're going to be hired.
So a question for you, Robin, on I think, do you do property management also? You just
No.
lease and buy it?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no.
Is there anybody in town that does that on the commercial side?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Real property does
Real
it.
property does it?
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
that do that.
Yeah.
I think Nest also. Oh no, Nest is Hasbrook now, right? Or I believe they've sold.
They do a
it.
couple.
Doug Brooks, the former police officer, bought real property, and he is the market leader
Yep.
in managing property in Central Virginia. He manages this building, Doug Brooks, in real property. So more comments coming in for you,
Okay.
Robin. Is this your sister-in-law that's watching? Hold on one second. I'm going to acknowledge her so she hears her. Marcia Greenspan?
Oh, yes, that's my sister.
Oh, that's your sister.
My sister.
She's giving you props and gave you the heart emoji.
Oh, well, good.
I thought
Thank
I've
you.
known you, Robin, for a long time. I thought there was something I missed.
I know. I was like, huh. Yeah, so I'll say early happy birthday to my sister.
His beautiful Better 7/8 is watching the program and says, thank you, Robin Amato, for joining us. Your information is so valuable and informative, from Yona Smith.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, this is
How about highlight some of your favorite deals that you've ever done?
Gosh.
Anything with me, right?
That's right. Yes, of course. Of course. Anything that had Keith. Yeah.
We do great though. I've
Yeah.
never ever on the commercial side. There's always something that pops up, and we've never been able not to work through it. And it's all about relationships. It's all about communication, and we just never been able to. There was never. I don't think there was a single deal we worked together that we couldn't get to happen.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of times with that, it's literally is communication.
Yep.
It's like with so many things.
Is that 5:30 in the morning text? Is that what it is?
I don't even know if I hear. I don't even hear those. Because no, I'm not awake at 5:30.
Neither am I. I'm not awake at 5:30.
Got it.
Well, it depends on if my kid's sleeping or not. So this question's come in. What do you think is going to be the next downtown mall from a commercial real estate standpoint? What area?
Oh, gosh, I don't know that.
Suzanne Reel says, thank you, Keith and Nikki. She's watching right now. Allied Property Management is the best. There you go, Suzanne.
I tell you, didn't have to do a darn thing.
Hey.
This is freaking awesome.
Hey, yeah, but I don't know the answer to that.
So let's change it
don't-
around, because
yeah.
Jerry asks me this question all the time. I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
General development, general growth. Where do you think that the next hot spot is? Real commercial, residential. What do you think?
In our area.
Within the footprint of Charlottesville.
Okay, so it's, cities always, when I say cities, areas, they always go north, west, east, and then south. So I still think that you've got a lot that's going to be happening out in the Crozet area. It's coming, and it's going to happen there. Going up 29, lots that's going on up on 29. So you'll see, and little by little going out east. But
Well, I've been
And
here
so-
37 years,
Louisa.
as Jerry corrected me, and it has happened. I remember when we first showed up, everybody said Richmond and Charlottesville, and you can see that, like Ferncliff, right? Most folks don't know, but Ferncliff is in Louisa County. There's a huge, a client of yours, a mutual friend of ours, owns a good portion of that. That's turned around. Ferncliff intersection, they're moving some industrial stuff in
yeah.
there. Is not
Yeah.
the case. So that whole area of coming together is really, really happening.
So, Zion Crossroad, that's grown so much. That was an area that is just amazing how that has grown.
Limited by water, though. That's the big struggle
But
out
it's
there.
coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit involved in that. It's not coming fast enough. I know the Zion's Crossroads side of Louisa's capped out on its water capacity, so it can't really grow much more until that Louisa JRWA, which is the Joint River Water Authority James River Water Authority coming from James, but hopefully that could come in the next 12 or 24 months.
Marquise is watching in Hampton, and he wants your take on the North Garden area.
Ooh.
Great rural area. But yeah, there's a
They're limited.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of times what happens with that is like getting water and sewer to an area, and I think that it's so it depends on what like what you're looking for, what you want to see there. That at the crossroads, great little area, and it's going to feed off of say from coming in from Livingston and coming in from Batesville, that side of Crozet. So I don't think you're going to see an awful lot happen there.
It's worth the ride to get a little
It
Dr.
is.
Ho's
That's
pizza.
Right. That's right.
Dr. Hose is amazing. Spencer Dillard's got a question. He's watching in Crozet. He said, Jerry, you talk on this show all the time about what the corner is going to turn into and whether it's going to be big box brands or corporate brands on the corner. Please ask your guest this question.
Oh, my crystal ball says it's going to be more of local, not as much. I think that for the size of it, you may see some national companies go, but it's not, I don't see personally, I don't see a big box
Well, it
being
didn't
able
work.
to go in there.
Sheets
Yeah,
didn't
Sheets
work.
didn't work.
Sheets didn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing
Yeah.
that might work is Starbucks.
Yeah.
And Starbucks is coming.
Yeah. And I grew
No,
up.
well, Starbucks is there on the corner, but unless there's a new Starbucks that I'm not aware of coming on there, but something like Starbucks or that, but I don't see.
No,
Sheets
you're not
is
going.
gonna make-
Yeah, you're not going to see you're not going to see Target. I don't expect that you're going to see unless you see a very small, downsized type. But I grew up in Crozet, so it's amazing to see all the changes and that are taking place there.
I mean, you talk about a few owners owning the downtown mall. There's definitely a few owners owning the corner.
Yes.
What's it like?
Yeah.
Controlled by 3 people, right? You got Hunter, you got Tip Top Terry. I always forget the female's name that owns a good chunk of the corner as well. I mean, 3 people own a good chunk of that little corridor.
And we're talking about the corner in Crozet?
Oh, the corner in UVA.
Oh, I thought I thought we were still back out in Crozet because, okay, so now
We
I got to go
pivoted.
back and answer my whole different question.
Yeah.
So, because the question is from the gentleman
Oh,
out
so
in
you
Crozet.
thought about it with Crozet.
Yeah.
So why don't we ask it
yeah.
again? Spencer Dillard wants to know if you see big box brands taking over the UVA corner. We know Chipotle
Not
is
in
going to
our
replace
lifetime.
College Inn.
Yeah, not in our, I don't think in our lifetime you will. I don't, no.
But you'll see things like Chipotle.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
and Starbucks because they're already there. But
Yeah.
I think a larger footprint. You just also don't geographically have the space,
Right.
right, to do something a little
Yeah.
bit larger. But
yeah.
it also, I can tell you from my perspective, we love Mark Ragged Mountain Run Shop. We go there like every 2 months to buy new pair of shoes and stuff like that. But when the students are around, I tell you, I don't go down there that often. I kind of stay away from that parameter
Yeah.
of that, and it's more on the downtown mall and coming up West Main.
Neil Williamson's got a question for you.
Okay.
He says, Robin, do you think Albemarle's growth area and water and sewer need to be expanded?
Well, real estate is what I do for a living, so I'm going
She
to go
says
with yes.
absolutely,
I'm
yes.
going to go with yes. Yes.
5% of Albemarle County is dedicated to growth, and that includes residential and commercial.
And,
that
so-
is,
and some land you can't build on.
and a lot of land you can't build on.
That's
That's
exactly
shocking.
right.
Susan Steinmark taught me that.
That's exactly
Thomas
right.
Jefferson Community Land Trust.
That's right. Susan
It's a great
Steinberg.
organization.
It's a great organization for affordable housing.
Yeah.
So I think we all in this room feel that, expanding that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So let's get to your crystal ball on what you think the market is going to do in 2022.
At some point, so I think we're, let's see, we're 20, I have to remember where we are, 2021. So I think that we will continue to see the market being good and upward, but we need to be prepared for it to slow down. It's coming. We've seen the ups and the downs, and
So we're talking commercial now, right?
I think you're going to probably see it in residential.
general.
It happens. Now, if I were probably to do the statistics and look at it, I could probably find how many every so many years that it happens, but it goes up and it goes down, and typically what slows it up is just the market's got to get back in check because it's crazy now.
So we're in our longest projected upward thing that I've been able to research on that end of it. So I still feel everything across the board is going to be growing at a very steady 3%, 4%, 5%. It's going to be very specific to location, which is a good thing. I think I know we're getting back to a balanced market. But to talk about the Monday Market Monitor, I did run we've been doing a week over week, Nikki, and just for the 4 weeks we've been doing it, there's been, for every new unit that came active, this is residential, every new unit that came active, 1.25 went off. So basically, we're kind of losing a quarter house or quarter residential unit every time one comes back on. So we're not, it's much better than it was 2 or 3 months ago or whatever. But we're not hitting this balance yet, and I think we've got a long way to go before that happens.
And it typically, it's not something that happens here in Charlottesville. It happens outside of Charlottesville. It happens other parts of the United States. It's people who are coming into Charlottesville that create us to slow up a little bit.
So let me ask you about the other side of the mountain. You mentioned that you do a little bit in that. How are you seeing the commercial market over there? Is it trending up? Is it staying a little stable? What is it looking like?
About Waynesboro downtown.
Yeah.
That is all right. Well, I don't know because I don't deal in the market, so I really don't know that much other than I know that the industrial that is going crazy with all the construction between Fishersville to going on up.
So why is that, you think?
Because it's affordable.
Affordable. They have the land.
And the counties and jurisdictions are wanting them.
Yeah. They're close to 64, close to 81. But for Charlottesville's market, I deal with so many people that they don't want to take their vehicles over the mountain. Most importantly, they don't want to be coming down the mountain and wear out their brakes. Use up the gasoline going up and wear out the brakes coming down.
We've been debating this for quite some time on the show. I think when gas starts getting a little up there beyond $3 or $3.50, you find that side of the market that he'll start dropping a little bit. But the fact that they're creating more work there, I had a conversation we're bringing on in the second half of September and October on Fridays, folks that are running for elected position, and I was having a conversation with a couple of outside county potential candidates, and they don't quite understand the ratio between having to create industry or create business and residential housing. They seem to only want one without the other, and it becomes this odd thing. I think out there on the other side of the mountain, they've found this balance of industry, commercial, and residential. I'm sure Neil Williamson can dive into the numbers. I don't know him off the top of my head, but it feels like there's a better balance there than it is over here. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Good comment right there. So as we close the program here, Stephen wants to know who are the major players in commercial real estate in Charlottesville City.
Robin Amato.
I was going to say
Buyers,
real estate.
buyers and sellers.
Owners. Okay, gosh.
Well, we rattled off a few names.
Yeah. I don't want to pick sides or pick. So we have lots of. I think there are lots of good people in Charlottesville that are big players in Charlottesville. So
I can personally speak for Robin Amato. You're great to work with.
Oh well, thank you.
Sandra says, any comments about how the traffic will be handled with the new developments around Lake Monticello?
Ooh, great question. So part of the one that I know in particular is Colonial Circle. That roundabout would not have been built if the Colonial Circle didn't come around, because they had to donate 2 acres of land to build that roundabout. But that's a great subject for another show.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for that topic.
When we bring back Maggie Gunnels, we're going to be talking Lake Monticello. That'd be a great question to ask.
Sounds good. You were awesome.
Hey, thank you. I've enjoyed it. You will make Monday morning easy.
The Monday Market Monitor, presented by Ally Property Management, guys. Ally Property Management, trusted name in the game. If you're looking for a property manager, Ally Property Management. And of course, Keith Smith, Closure Title.
Yeah, I mean, they get deals done, right? That's what we had before we came here. We had a company meeting. We have a company meeting every Monday morning at 9:00, and we were talking about, the pieces of the puzzle that required to get from a contract or a lease to moving people in and getting it done, and you need somebody like Closure Title to make that happen.
There you go.
Yeah, they're rock stars.
Rock stars,
Yeah.
no doubt about
Thank you
it.
guys for helping me start my week off right.
It's the
So
Monday
what do you got planned for the rest of the day, Nikki? You're pretty busy in that new position.
I am. I've got the leadership thing going on with
Cool.
my staff over at KWA, where we're going over some finding our why and calls to make and database to work, because this is what I do.
Well, thank you for taking time
Yeah,
out to do this,
I
Robin. Thank you,
appreciate it.
thank you. Love doing deals with you. We'll keep on doing them together.
We
We're
shall.
great.
Hey, thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Our pleasure, guys. Thank you for watching. We are back in 53 minutes, guys, with the I Love CVille show. Thank you for joining us on a Monday. Take care. Keep it local, guys. See you very soon with the I Love CVille show. Take care. Nicely done, Robin.
Hey, thank you.
That was amazing.
Oh, well, good.
Like,
Thank you.
legit, you were providing